Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's CJ. Hopefully, everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday so far. It is Wednesday, March the 9th. It is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have not done so yet, take a pause, take a deep breath, relax, chill out. I know it's kind of crazy right now, the frequency of news, the frequency of information that's coming at us. So want to welcome everyone. This is a simulcast. This is being simulcast as a Gadfly news brief, and you can support my work that I do as producer CJ at a couple different sites. So if you have not done so yet, do me a favor. You can follow my work over on my public platform, which is at producer CJ1, which is on Twitter. If you're listening in, you're either on here on CJ OMC YouTube page or over on the Gadfly. And then many of you are probably familiar with my work on the multi-channel network, the Gadfly.vhx.tv, work that I do over there with London Paul and Ken Shortgun Jr. Honor and privilege to work with both of those gentlemen over there. So check that out. And then also roguenews.com with V, the guerrilla economist. So needless to say, I just, the information that's coming out of it at us is just so fast, and we have some shows lined up today quite a bit. So I'm going live with London Paul and Ken Shortgun Jr. at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a roundtable discussion with them. I know that V also has a scheduled show at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I apologize for the schedule conflict, but that's just unfortunately the way that it happens sometimes. Give a shout out to those in the chat room. So I want to thank all the support that I get. Hobo is in the house. Hobo Sermons. Check out his YouTube channel. Amazing artist, very talented in his music and everything that he does. And we need to collaborate and do some more work together, Hobo, as we move forward through this. Also, Green Machine. Welcome, Green Machine. Sky Queen is in the house. Mojo Palms is in the house. Rory is in the house as well. Rory from the Daily Hall. I'm here, Rory. I'm here. William Justice in the house. Raven 6 and Quantum. Andrew is here as well. What's happening? Yeah. So again, there's several shows that are posted. So whether you're in the Discord, you're going to find out the schedule for today, or if you're listening in here. But just amazing information that's coming to us, and the amount of propaganda is just off the charts. It's nothing different that I haven't shared in previous posts, previous discussions in regards to whether it's, put the Ukrainian flag on your social media post because that's what you need to do, or paying higher gas at the gas pump is patriotic because that's the right thing to do. The amount of propaganda is just off the charts right now, and so much information, so much disinformation that's occurring. I don't have all the answers, so I'm not going to pretend to. But it's okay to have variations in opinions, and it's okay to do that and not necessarily fear the repercussions of being deemed or labeled as a Russia sympathist or a Putin supporter. All those things that we typically hear. What I'm here to do in my work is trying to avoid the escalation. I'm trying to avoid bombs dropping on U.S. cities. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. And I don't think that people are quite getting that. I don't think that half the population in the United States understands that we are currently at war. we truly are, whether it's economic warfare, whether it's the back and forth, and what I'm witnessing, and I hopefully, what I'm witnessing is just an absolute dismal failure of epic proportions in terms of our foreign policy in the United States. It is so mismanaged. It looks like a dysfunctional individual who has no idea what they're doing. We're going back and forth. I don't know who's listening to who right now, and it's very unfortunate. And that's why I think that there's great risk associated with that, because who is dictating U.S. foreign policy? But the first thing that I want to do is to jump into this, and that's okay because it's important to have variations in opinions and not to be afraid to be vocal about it. Many of you have probably watched the video that I shared from one of the UFC fighters from this past weekend after his post-fight win. He was specifically asked about the situation in Ukraine. And that's Bryce Mitchell, who is, from Arkansas, a very talented individual. And he spoke honestly. He spoke from the heart. So the first thing that I think we should do is to get the audience, get people to understand that it's okay. Alan's in the house. Welcome, Alan. It's okay to have differences in opinion as it relates to the thoughts on Ukraine. Unfortunately, the media, the powers that be, want to attempt to basically create or control the narrative. That's why you're seeing all counter information of things that they want you to believe completely shut down, whether that's RT, whether that's Sputnik News, all these variations and opinions that are going to lead you to think as an individual. Don't be afraid to do so. I ain't mad at you if you don't, but you don't have to, believe everything that you see in the legacy media. So let's take a look at this conversation. So last night on Tucker Carlson, no promotion for Fox News or anything like that. I don't support any of Fox News or CNN, anything like that. It's just what information that I gain. So let's jump into this in regards to why this is important to have variations in opinion. So this first video comes to us. I'm going to add this to the stream real quick. Is from that discussion last night that Bryce was on with Tucker Carlson. So let's hit this.
So of all the people we've seen weigh in on Ukraine, maybe none has put the American position more succinctly or expressed it more wisely than a man called Bryce Mitchell. We played a portion of his comments on this show yesterday. Bryce Mitchell is a cattle farmer from Arkansas. He's also a fairly well-known UFC fighter. Last week, he was asked, what do you think about Ukraine? And here's part of what he said.
I'm not going nowhere to fight none of these wars for these politicians. I'm staying at home, and when the war comes to Arkansas, I will dig my boots in the ground, and I will die for everything I love, and I will not retreat. If this country's invaded and everybody's saying, well, we gotta evacuate, we gotta leave, I will not. I will dig my boots in the Arkansas soil, and I will fight for the people that I love, for the land that I love, and the way of life that I love. But I'm not going overseas to fight. I don't know what's going on.
A lot of people you see on TV would leave instantly if we were invaded. There's been polling on it. It shows it pretty clearly. You should pay attention to the people who wouldn't leave, who'd fight for their country and for their people, the ones they love. Bryce Mitchell's obviously in that category. He won his fight on Saturday, we should tell you. He promised to give half the purse to a charity in Arkansas to help children with medical conditions. We are honored to have Bryce Mitchell join us tonight. Bryce, thanks so much for coming on and for what you said. I haven't seen anybody express it better than you did. Why did you say that?
Well, thank you so much for having me, brother. And I said that because that's the first thing that I thought when he asked me, and I was trying to give him the best answer that I could, and that's just my genuine thoughts on the subject.
How do you get to be so honest when everyone else is afraid to say what they think, and you just kind of say it?
Well, I don't have to be worried about being fired from my job for saying what I want to say. There's a lot of people out there that do agree with me, but they can't say things that I get to say, even though they think them. They'll get fired from their job if they come out and say it. Dana White's pretty good with how he lets us talk and say what we want.
That is absolutely right and a fair thing to say. Now, people who say what you have said are often denounced as unpatriotic or traitors to their country. Does that confuse you, since the first thing you said was, I will fight and die for Arkansas?
That'd be the greatest honor I could ever have, brother. So I'm far from not being a patriot. You know, that'd be the greatest thing I could do, is die defending this land. So I'm not afraid to do that. I'm just not wanting to go waste my life fighting for some of these battles that I don't even believe in. I believe our leaders, a lot of these elites, are guilty of treason. What they've done is just treasonous, and and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about a little bit.
It's funny that they're accusing you of treason. Why do you think almost everyone in the media, and I mean almost everybody, in both political parties, and of course the White House, are all on the same page that you need to get behind this war with Russia? Why is that so important to them? Do you have any sense?
Well, I don't exactly know what their agenda is with the whole war on Russia, but I do know that all that money that's going to the Biden family through Hunter Biden, he doesn't have the merit for that position he's got over there. They've used our tax dollars to bribe him a job. If me or you did what Nancy Pelosi did and got millions in stocks, we'd go to prison for insider trading, but she does it, and she's filthy rich. So their families are getting very greatly compensated while they're taxing us to death. Inflation's higher than ever. They close down all of our pipelines and wonder why the price of oil has gone through the roof. These people are trying to destroy our country because they are profiting off the downfall of our country. And if y'all don't see what's going on, you are blinded every day. Our inflation gets worse, our debt gets worse. Our actual currency is controlled by a small group called the Federal Reserve that ain't federal and ain't a reserve. So it's insidious in nature. It's made to control. We have a lot of problems, and it's going to take a lot of things to fix it.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you're saying, all of which is, in my view, true. So for our viewers who aren't familiar with you, because we were so struck by that clip that we played last night and part of it tonight, we got another clip. This is you training at your ranch in Arkansas. We're going to play it.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right there, and so hopefully everyone enjoyed what Bryce had to say, because there's so much truth to it. I've stated this numerous times in social media posts that I've stated, is that the greatest freedom that you can provide yourself is when you get the ability to state and post what you think without worrying about what others think about you. It's what Joe Rogan calls post and ghost, right? Because it's okay to have a variation in opinion, and it's okay to be labeled un-American. It's okay to be labeled all the things that people who firmly believe into this narrative in regards to the propaganda that is continuous from our legacy news media, from our politicians. And what Bryce stated is just so important for us to understand, is that the multitude of corruption that has been established in Washington, D.C. is beyond repair. And I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're a Democrat, they're one and the same. They're both corrupt as can be. It's just a matter of who they align with, what corporate agenda they follow suit, who's patting their wallets. Why do you think that people, when they go to Washington, D.C., I'm going to try hard not to variate in regards to what this stream is about. Why do you think that when people go to Washington, D.C. and they're there for 30, 25, 30 years, why do you think that is? It becomes a cesspool of corruption, of greed. And they want to pretend that they're looking out for things that they deem as patriotic, as American, but it's not. It's a completely broken system, and the message is clear. And the purpose of showing that video is that you cannot be afraid. You cannot be afraid to have individual thought, individual liberty, to fight back against the status quo and worry about what your friends think, worry about what your family thinks. You are an individual, and you're empowered to believe and think on your own terms. It may not be right. What I'm saying may not be right, but I'm not afraid to say it. And what I'm attempting to do here is to prevent any type of further escalation of bombs dropping on U.S. cities, which is a reality. It's a potential reality that if we do not get things situated, if we do not correct, if we do not reverse course of the trajectory that we're currently heading. One of those trajectories, and one of the biggest fears that I have, and we're seeing a lot of pushback from it, and it's a shame. It's very hard to control my emotions right now, because I really want to go off the chart, but it's not gonna come across the right way. It's gonna, and I'm not worried about what people think, but I want it to be a clear and concise message. And what that message is that we, our politicians, the media, have done a huge disservice to Ukraine, to the Ukrainian people, because what we've done is we've led them down a path, because we feel arrogant, we feel confident, because we're the keyboard warriors, whether it's Lindsey Graham, all these neocons that get in front that want to talk this big game, right? Like, if I was there, I would take up arms and I would battle Russia myself. Okay, well, go volunteer. In fact, I think that anytime that there's a war escalation, I think the first 50 people to go need to be volunteers from Congress and the Senate to go to those areas of conflict, either themselves or they dedicate a family member to go. And if they're not willing to do that, then shut up. Shut up. Get out of the conversation and don't put on this arrogance, this confidence, this Nikki Haley that, we can establish all these things, because what we've done is that we're creating a very, very dangerous course, and there's going to be a lot of innocent lives that are lost, and it's at the expense of our arrogance, of the United States government arrogance, our politicians' arrogance to guide people down that path. Perfect example. And this could have been one of the first OMC's reaction videos, which I'm still going to do because there's so many videos out there and I'm watching. I'm like, that's not right. That's pure stupidity. We need to debunk that like right now. But here's the first one. And this is in regards to the no-fly zone that everyone is aware of. Everyone's been talking about this no-fly zone, this arrogance, this confidence level that says, hey, we can go to Ukraine. We can do this. We can support the Ukrainian people. We can support their war efforts. We can do all these things. So this is the first video. And this comes from Fox News, FAUX, Fox News, and the 5. And they're specifically going to talk about this no-fly zone. And kudos to Poland, because Poland's like, listen, like, United States, you're putting all this pressure on us to dedicate these MiGs to Ukraine. And, we don't want to be good or bad neighbors, and we want to get along. They're like walking the middle of the road right now with NATO alliances and also without pissing off Vladimir Putin. And I had to laugh at what was established. And what that was established was that he came out and the Polish government said, hey, listen, we're willing to give the MiGs, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to park these MiGs in Germany on a NATO base, and we're going to give them to you. You have to guarantee that you're going to replace us with the F-16s, but it's going to be up to you, NATO alliances, Germany, United States, to get these MiGs to Ukraine, because we want hands off at this, because we don't want retaliation. We do not want to be on Vladimir Putin and Russia's bad list. So here's the 5's reaction to how that event unfolded, because it caught the U.S. State Department completely off guard, and because Poland understands that, like, they want to remove themselves from the crosshairs of this escalation, while the United States is attempting to talk a big game, like be the big dog in the house with the big bark but no bite. So here's what they had to say. I need to remember to add this to the stream so you guys can hear the audio. Here we go.
He is refusing to back down, vowing to stay in Kyiv despite the Russian military's vicious attack on his country and hit squads trying to hunt him down. Zelensky revealing his location in the war-torn capital of Kyiv and sending this defiant message.
I stay here in Kyiv at Bankova Street. I don't hide, and I'm not afraid of anyone. I will stay here as long as it's not.
Transfer those aircraft to Ukraine. The State Department says it was caught off guard. So let's go to Mike Tobin. He's in Lviv, Ukraine, with the latest there. Good evening, Mike. I think it's just after midnight there.
It is. And Poland was reluctant to make this move, fearing that slippery slope to combat of East versus West if they were to donate the aircraft. And suddenly there came this announcement today that Poland would donate its fleet of MiG-29s with the promise that the U.S. would backfill them with F-16s. The problem with it is U.S. officials say they were blindsided by this announcement. Here's the Undersecretary of State.
And I saw that announcement by the government of Poland as I was literally driving here today. To my knowledge, it wasn't pre-consulted with us that they plan to give these planes to us. But as you know, we have been having consultations with them for a couple of days now about this request from the Ukrainians to receive their aircraft.
Now, the Ukrainians would welcome this development because their pilots are trained to fly the MiGs, and this seems to be a mechanism through which the Polish government can put it back on NATO by putting the planes back into the Ramstein Air Force Base. But again, the Ukrainians have requested time and time again for a no-fly zone, or the way the Ukrainians put it, to close the sky. They feel it would be a step toward equalizing this fight. In fact, one of the refugees that I spoke with yesterday said they very much want to close the skies, because if you can take the fight to the ground, he said, we kill them like rats. Guys, back to you.
All right, Mike Tobin, thank you. Stay safe, and we'll see you later tonight, I'm sure. Jesse, what do you think about this move by the Poles?
Poles really tried to force our hand, didn't they? That came out of nowhere. I don't think the Poles want their hands dirty, but do we want our hands dirty? Why transfer the jets to Ramstein? That's a U.S. air base, technically, in Germany. It seems convoluted to me, but again, this is Europe again trying to drag the United States into a land war, potentially, in Europe, where they should be the ones taking the lead. This is a NATO.
Okay, Jesse's wrong. Okay, because he said what this is Europe's attempt to drag the United States into a land war. Jesse, you're completely wrong. We're the one that drove Ukraine to do this. We're the ones that put this government in place. You're so full of shit. I'm sorry. You're so full of shit with that statement that the Europe and them are trying to drag the United States in this. We've been the arrogance. We've been the wrong in this, but you won't admit that because you're a paid propagandist. You're paid to speak a certain thing, and you try to walk in the middle of the room. You try to spin things. I'm sorry. I just can't. Let's continue this.
Alliance. It's a defensive alliance. Let's not expand it and play a game of chicken with someone who has nothing to lose. Putin has nothing to lose. His economy's cratering. This is his last gasp here. This is all or nothing for him. And why would you play chicken with someone like that? He's just going to go all out. So it's incredibly risky. I'd like to just be a little more measured. You know, we give them things here, we give them things there, we kind of ramp up, see how Russia reacts. Because if we just start sending aircraft into that war zone, I mean, what happens if that pilot engages a Russian anti-aircraft battalion down on the ground? So we're taking out Russian anti-aircraft batteries in Russia proper or Belarus? I mean, that's how you have to defend yourself.
Jesse, we give things here, we give things there. Do you not understand, Jesse, that that's the reason why this whole escalation occurred? Because we provided offensive weapons in Ukraine. Russia knew all these things. So everything that we've done up to this point has led to this escalation and put it at this breaking point, at this point of no return. So don't bullshit around with these comments of we give them stuff here, we give them stuff there, but then at the last minute we pull things back because we're afraid to go fight ourselves. Jesse, what you're afraid of is putting on a military uniform and going to fight on yourself because you're a coward, Jesse. You're a coward. You want to walk the middle of the road and you don't want to speak the truth that this is a completely bad idea. You don't want to speak the truth that the U.S. has we should have no involvement in this escalation, but you know what? We're the ones that created this mess. And now we have to live with it. Let's get, I'm sorry. I'll try not to keep pausing this video, but I'm sure you guys in the chat room, I can't see the chat room right now, so I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Yourself in the sky. I'm just afraid of this thing spiraling out of control. We have gone the entire Cold War with never having to get involved with a shooting war with the Russians. And then now all of a sudden we're going to escalate right on their front door. I mean, I like the idea. This is a proxy war now, right? We're in a proxy war and we're doing it right on their doorstep. I get it. That's where we are now. But
pause. This is not a proxy war. This is a hot war. People are being killed. Innocent people. It's not a proxy war, Jesse. Okay? You're wrong.
That thing seems a little risky, and I'm not ready to say, hey, Biden, you're a commander-in-chief, you're in charge, I trust you. This is not a guy I trust to manage this type of delicate deal with the Russians who are desperate right now.
Well, the other thing is earlier today, we were told that there was frustration that this decision-making was stuck at the White House. And we asked Admiral Kirby about that. He's like, oh, no, everything's fine. Well, clearly everything was not fine, Geraldo. If the Poles decided like, okay, we will force your hand and send these to Ramstein.
You know, I think that the whole idea of it in theory is fine and noble, and it sounds like it would be effective and it would answer our nagging, gut-wrenching.
Okay, pause. Do we win wars by theory? In theory, if we would have done this, in theory, is that how life works nowadays? Just in theories? There's something very broken with that statement. And I'm just going to say this. I'm not judging you, But if you gather your news and information from any news station that you see on TV, you're a dumbass. You are, because these people are so full of shit. I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell it how it is. You do not win wars by theory. You do not put people's lives at risk because of theories. Let's continue.
Feeling that we're allowing the Ukrainians to be pummeled from the air by the Russians' air superiority. But I don't see it happening mechanically. It's what do? You send the Ukrainian pilots to Germany. Then you got to check them out. You got to make sure that they can integrate the Polish instrumentation with the Ukrainian air defenses.
That's what happened
and so
in World
forth.
War II.
It's I think that in World War II and Lend-Lease it happened, but it took a long time, and Europe is still mad at us for taking so long to get involved, to get engaged. I like the idea in theory. I just don't see it. I agree with Jesse about the need to be measured and not provoke, a wounded lion there. One quick thing about Zelensky and his safety. I think Zelensky is already immortal. He's already Leonidas. He's already Churchill. They can't kill Zelensky. Even if they kill him, he will live on forever. Now, I don't want it to be reckless, and I think that he again he's poking Putin maybe unnecessarily.
Okay, Zelensky's already a Leonidas. He's already a Churchill. Why? Because he's bunkered down in the U.S. embassy or the Ukraine embassy in Poland. This guy, in his recklessness, is what created this mess. Let's not mince words here. Because of his arrogance, because of him being basically just a sheep to U.S. to this guy was like a podunk comedian, right? Like podunk probably had like less than probably $50 in his checking account during the time, and now he's like a multimillionaire. Like he's set up for life, and he doesn't care about the Ukrainian people that are going to die through this conflict. So how does that make one brave? How does that make one brave that you're not intelligent enough, you're not strategic enough, you're willing to sell your soul, because that's what he's doing. He is selling his soul to the West at his own benefit because he's getting rich off of innocent people dying. So don't feed me this bullshit that he's a hero, that he's Leonidas, that he's Churchill. He's not. Come on. Just, man, I got to do more of these reaction videos because it's good. It gets some of my emotions going, gets some things out. You can disagree with me. That's fine. I don't give a shit. You can disagree all you want, but this guy is not a hero. He's a zero. Let's keep going.
He has made his point. He's very flamboyant in it, and now I want him to keep trucking.
What about you, Judge? You've got a pensive look on your face.
Yeah, I have to
here
tell
we
you,
go.
The U.S. has always taken the lead with NATO.
Go get some more Botox,
I
Judge.
think, that this is
Your
very
lips aren't full enough.
complicated. But I also think that if Poland is willing to give, the MiGs to the Ukrainians, and that our job would be to backfill, what is the problem? And you mentioned it, Geraldo, and I throw this out for discussion only, with the Ukrainian getting that plane from Poland or from Germany and flying it. I mean, these people were watching the massacre of a nation and children. This is cannibalism. What's going on?
Cannibalism. Okay, so let's go to Germany. Let's get pilots in those planes. Let's attempt to fly those into Ukraine. These people have absolutely no connection, no real world understanding of strategy, of military. Neither do I. I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. But a comment like that, that's so stupid. And cannibalism. Does she not know what cannibalism is? I mean, maybe it may happen. I know there's a situation in the Middle East that we heard of those things occurring. But my gosh, the level of disconnect and stupidity with these people who are on national news just.
On there, it's terrorism.
I agree with that.
This is medieval. And so we got to make sure they know how to fly the plane. Baloney. Let them, if we can get the planes to them, and make no mistake, Putin is going to change the rules at every turn. If you provide a plane, you're provoking us. If you do this, you're provoking me. At some point, we've got to stand up and say, we're stronger than you are, you little.
What if he fires a tactical?
Okay, Janine, suit up. Suit up. If we have to be brave enough to go do these things, man up. Go volunteer. Do it. I had a friend from high school that was arrested. He wanted to do that. He was a pretty badass dude. Golden Glove boxer. You know, he helped me out in a few situations with some people that need to have their be spot checked. He went to the Ukraine embassy and was loaded up with weapons and got arrested because he wanted to go. I mean, that was his decision. But so Judge Janine, man up, go do it. If you're so brave enough to come on national television and say how tough that America needs to be, then you need to be that spokesperson. You need to be at the front of the line. But you won't. Why? Because all these people on national news are cowards. They wouldn't do it. I doubt that they would defend even their homestead. They would probably pack it up and be the first to get the hell out of Dodge and go to those bunkers that are created in Colorado and wherever else is that they would go. But this is the level of stupidity that we're dealing with here in the United States in regards to our media and the stupid comments that they make, and they go on national news. And that's why I created this channel, was to have reactions to this level of stupidity that we see time and time again, that people want to perceive as accurate and lead them to believe their thoughts.
Nuclear weapons. Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. And what if we like kowtow, and so he's got no incentive to not do it, and say we're not even gonna do our nuclear exercises because we don't want to intimidate him. Greg, we've got the wrong guy in the White House.
Lots to choose from there.
Yeah, I think that the overarching message is we should be very wary of being pulled into anything based on narratives coming out of Ukraine or Russia. There's a lot of stuff that we hear about that turns out not to be true. The media is framing this in a way that is, and this isn't my analogy, but this is the way I feel, that Ukraine is like the child of a divorce, and they're fighting for custody, and Russia is the biological parent, and we are the stepmom who doesn't want the abusive dad to get him. That may not be an accurate analogy, but that's how I feel the narrative dynamic is going. And I see, this is what I give credit to Zelensky, is that this is the old world versus the new world. Putin thinks the world is only about seizing land, but Zelensky understands in a world of connectivity, you're seizing minds now. He's fighting a persuasive battle for minds, and he's kicking Putin's butt on this. Whether the stuff that Zelensky is saying is actually true, it's positively Trumpian what Zelensky's doing. I love Zelensky the way a chicken loves the guy who feeds him pellets, because I'm in an industry where I love getting that pellet every day and learning what I'm going to say. But you have to wonder when you're listening to this stuff, and whether these pellets are real or not, whether we are being artificially pulled into a conflict, right? Through this David and Goliath narrative that we're being given.
But it's true.
What, maybe?
Okay, I like Greg. I like his show. I think it's funny. He started speaking about Ukraine and as the stepchild, which is so true. Everyone knows through the documentary of Ukraine on Fire that Ukraine has always went both directions, right? They're like that candle of the wind, that they're here, they're there, they're not quite certain, they're trying to understand. So I think his analogy of being that stepchild of Putin saying, hey, listen, you're a natural born, and then you have the West that's saying, hey, you know what, you're our stepchild, this is what we're gonna do. So I think I don't have a problem with that analogy. I think that's pretty fair. But then when he goes on to state, he's like, Zelensky, and giving credit to him, and I think that everyone needs to remember that a lot of the events, a lot of the reason why we are is because Zelensky and him being a Western puppet. The fact that he was willing to basically to take money in return of sacrificing the Ukrainian people and the innocent lives lost, versus, resign. You resign or quit, but have some type of level of self-pride of trying to do the right thing versus willing to profit off the innocents' lives that are being lost. I'm going to shut it down right here on this video in regards to that. Let me remove that, go back to the chat room. What's everyone else think? Am I disconnected? Don't be afraid to tell me I'm wrong. I mean, that's the last thing that I want, but that's just a perfect example. And what it falls back to is this, is that, you know, we've had this tough talk for so long. You've seen people from the left and the right who have came to this and been so strong in their words and stating that, hey, you know, Ukraine and Zelensky, they need to be so tough to Russia. Like we want to push them to that point where they're ready to you know, if you're a gosh, maybe this isn't a good example. I'm going to go there, but if you're a terrorist and you feel that you're doing the right thing, you know, yeah, maybe you're not a terrorist. Maybe you're fighting a battle and you know what, here's what it is. That, you know what, there's a mine, or you know what, maybe there's a hand grenade that's been dropped on the floor and it's rolling there, and there's 10 of your family members, 10 of your friends that are right there. And what the US is saying that, hey, think about jumping onto that mine to save the lives of others, onto that hand grenade, up to the point where, you know what, hold on, because don't completely do it, like fake it like you're going to do it, because you have to consider that you're going to die through this situation. Maybe it's better to look at the lives of others and say, is it better for them to lose their life and you continue versus doing that? And I think that's where we have brought Ukraine, that we have provided them the weapons. We've done all these things to bring them to the cusp of this war that they're in, but then we're dialing back. We're not all in. Why? Because exactly, Green Machine, they're armchair quarterbacks. They're armchair quarterbacks wargaming this. And you know what? As long as there's no harm, as long as there's nothing directly that impacts to us, we're okay. We're gonna forget that. Okay, next discussion. Let's move on. So what has this led to? So it looks like that the State Department, the left hand can't talk to the right hand. So obviously what's happening here, let me add this to the stream here. There we go. Add to the stream. That basically Pentagon says Poland's jet offer for Ukraine is non-tenable, that we can't do it. Because why? Because we're not brave enough. We're not willing to be all in, and nor should we be. We should be working to de-escalate this situation. That's what no one gets. Everyone wants to talk about upping the ante, a no-fly zone, shipping more weapons, print $3 billion and send them all this stuff to keep leading them to their death. Why? Because as long as it doesn't impact me at home, I'm willing to sacrifice the Ukrainian people because it doesn't directly impact me. But I'm not willing to get to the point where Russia deems us an enemy and their hypersonic missiles are pointed right at New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, because I'm not willing to do that. So therefore, that's not going to happen. I think the Polish played their card right because they were getting a lot of pressure, right? Poland was getting a lot of pressure to get those MiGs over to Ukraine. And what they did, in my opinion, was brilliant, where they said, okay, NATO, okay, US, UK, you're going to call us out and say that we've agreed to this when we probably haven't. So here are our MiGs. You want them, you got them, but guess what? We're going to park them in Germany, and you guys need to finish the delivery. But what happens? The United States says, wait, we can't do that, because that means that puts us in direct war with Russia, and we don't want that, because we want to be the armchair quarterbacks. We want to be the Monday armchair quarterbacks that rehashes the game and what happened. But we're happy to send them weapons. We're happy to send them money, but we're not willing to get to that point where we're willing to sacrifice our family members or ourselves, you know, for that conflict. So this was very significant that the Pentagon was caught off guard by the Poland, and said, hey, look, you know what? The jets are yours. They're parked in Germany. Go get it. You want them in Ukraine. It's up to you. You finish the thing, because we're not going to be in the crosshairs of Russia. We're not willing to do that. So that was huge. another revelation that took place this past, last night. That's why I have this show because there's so much freaking going on. I'm going live at 2 p.m. With Ken Shergan Jr. and also London Paul. They're going to have a lot to say. But this other breaking news was huge. We had a lot of information talking about these biological research facilities in the Ukraine. And for the most part, we didn't jump into it too much because there was a lot of speculation where it wasn't confirmed. But now we have that. We have that confirmation. So let's jump into this discussion that Marco Rubio had with Secretary of State Victoria Nuland in regards to those labs. And I think all of you probably have seen this by now.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities.
Did you see how slow she stated that? She had to be like, let me make sure that I state this properly, that I don't use the word weapons, that I don't use, these words. So let's hear that again.
Which, in fact, biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're...
Notice her blinking, how nervous she is talking about this, her constant blinking, because I think her nerves are off the chart here because she understands the implications of Russia disclosing what particular biological type labs that we had created, that the U.S. State Department had created in Russia, or I'm sorry, in Ukraine, because the ones in China were so effective, right? Like, we didn't spend the last 2.5 years with a complete disruption of our lives because of the labs that were in China, of labs that were funded by the NSA, by the Health and Human Services, by the CDC, which all of us are very familiar with at this point. So let's, again, watch her eyes. I mean, it's just amazing how much time she blinks.
Prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda...
You see that blinking pattern? Do I need to show it again? They're in fear that this is going to be exposed. Watch this again. Watch her blinks. I don't blink that much when having conversation. Unless I'm nervous about something, unless maybe I'm stretching the tooth or lying. You never know.
Research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out...
They even took the camera off of her at one point.
They've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological
Okay, stop,
weapons in the
Rubio.
country
Stop, Rubio.
with
You're a
NATO
puppet.
coordination.
You're a
If there's
neocon, Rubio. You have no business serving anything in America. You should be like put on a boat and shipped out to sea, and whatever happens to you happens, Rubio. You're a piece of shit. I'm sorry, he truly is. They're setting the stage for some type of false flag event, which that we're the masters of doing time and time again. So with these labs, we have to ask ourselves, what in the world is the State Department doing creating these labs in Ukraine? Did we not learn anything from China? Maybe I missed something, but I think the last 2.5 years, there may be something out there that impacted things here in America, funded by U.S. taxpayers. And guess what? The same thing is happening again. Well, why? Let's scroll down. I see some comments. Let's jump into the comments a little bit. She looks like a deer in headlights. Absolutely. Arc Vault. Hobo says that, oops, let me go back to Hobo. Hobo says the bigger issue is if the labs in Ukraine get exposed, they all get exposed around the world. I found one here in Thailand. Yeah, I'm guarantee you there's anywhere where there's conflict, anything that they want to do, there's an ability to do that. Rory, the labs have been primary targets of the bombing efforts by Ukraine, or by Russia. I'm sorry, by Russia. Absolutely. So I'm just scrolling through the comments. Ignore my little music playing here. Armchair, Cuckoo. Yeah. Okay. So let's. So anyway, so what is this led to? So now we know the information that was deemed conspiracy at the beginning, that Russia had bombed these labs, is now coming full circle into light as to the existence of these labs. They're now confirmation proof, right? So now, and I titled this for a reason, that, like, you know, the U.S. State Department, we're on our back footing because now we're having to answer for some of these things. We're having to, you know, we're getting pushback. We're getting pushback from the Polish, like, hey, like, you're pushing us into this war, but you're not doing anything yourselves. So we're not going to do that. They're in Germany. So that's issue number one. The issue number two is in regards to these labs. And this was Russia's response to these labs. And China's also involved, where they're pushing for full transparency, because we need to know, like, they need to know, like, if what research was going on, is there a potential that we may run into another issue, like maybe that's involved and impacted our lives the last 2.5 years. So here's what Russia, the State Department of Russia, had to say in regards to those particular labs. And I think this is in translation. I think it's translated. So if it's not, I apologize, but here we go.
We assume that the materials existing today, the confirmations that were made these days by the Ukrainian side and by the United States of America, there was a statement made by the Deputy Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, leave no doubt, will not leave an opportunity for Washington to keep silence this time. We remember how many years, and also their attempts while spilling blood to find biological and chemical weapons throughout the world, while in fact occupying, killing people. They were looking in the wrong place. We have found instead of you. We have found your own products. We have found your biological material. It was developed primarily for military purposes. As it turns out, it was all happening in Ukraine. What were you doing there? It's a different continent. It has no borders with you. There are no bases of yours. What were they doing there under the guise of scientific research? Your specialist, among others, on a regular basis, they were giving instructions to the Ukrainian side as to the purposes of their studies involved. Now, considering that we have the evidence that cannot be refuted, we demand that you provide details. The world must know what were you intending to do there, to what end, within which deadline, what was the amount of the so-called investments in the biological activities of Ukraine. The data, materials, documents, please provide them.
Whoa. So, hands in the cookie jar. Absolutely, Hari. So what was the purpose? Why are those labs in existence in Ukraine? What was being researched? And again, this is putting the U.S. State Department on the back footing, because now we have just demanding. And they said that we're not going to let this issue rest. We're not going to stop here. You know, and I imagine what's happening right now, that all the documents that are being retrieved are being transcribed into English. The documents that I've seen so far are primarily not in English, so I'm sure that there's a concentrated effort to properly get those documents transcribed, to get ready to get those those published. So here we go. That's where it is. So again, the U.S. State Department back footing. Another interesting thing that happened is yesterday, or the day before, the administration announced that we're going to cut off all Russian oil into the United States. All of this without any preparation. And what happened was, and this is going to be pretty quick. It's going to be quick fire through these next couple of articles. But the Germans, let me add this to the stream. I always forget to do that. Add this to the stream, where the German Chancellor Scholz pushed back on this and said, you know what? We're not so much on board with this Russian energy import ban. We're not so sure that this is going to work for us, United States. You know what? You're pretty brave for doing so. Why don't you guys go at it, but kind of leave us out of this equation because we're not sure we're going to land with this. So we're starting to see this synchronicity of the EU, the West, kind of break apart a little bit in regards to the narrative. Now, what's happened since then? So the tail between their legs, the United States, the State Department now, the Biden administration is like left to think, okay, well, what are we going to do with energy prices? Like, but you know what? It's patriotic. It's patriotic to go pay $5 at a gas. So do your part, go gas up, go buy extra gas containers right now, go buy extra gasoline and fill up all those containers because it's patriotic. Go do it. I'm sorry. I hate to laugh at this because I know that there's literally people who are probably struggling to figure out how they're going to make ends meet with these gas prices and doing, but this is just the level of stupidity that we've arrived with our State Department, with our U.S. foreign policy. We have people who are in office that have absolutely no business holding the positions that they're in. And we announced this move to ban all imports of Russian oil without any plan of how to stabilize energy prices around the globe, not to impact your average American. The elites are fine. The elites are fine. They don't mind. They've got the disposable income. They probably write off their gas, right? Like, I doubt if one vehicle that they own is even deemed as an individual vehicle. It's probably all a tax write-off because they operate everything under an LLC. So the vehicles, there are several vehicles that are probably dealt more of like a freight type business, and that they write off the gas for it. That's how they do things. But to your average American, to your working poor, they're providing this excuse that it's American thing to do is to pay these higher prices. Pete Buttigieg is saying, you know what? You can't pay these prices. Guess what? Go buy an electric vehicle. That's the right thing to do. Okay, well, do you understand how much electric vehicle is? And can your working poor, can your people who are working 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, struggling to pay their mortgage, their rent, their utilities, can they afford to do that? This is just exposes the level of disconnect between Washington, D.C. and the working class of America. The difference between Main Street and Wall Street, the fascist state of America that we currently live in, that they have no idea of what Main Street looks like. So what does the United States do? Biden picks up the phone and he calls Saudi Arabia and the UAE and says, hey, let's jump on the phone. Let's talk about what your oil and what you're doing with OPEC. And is there any chance that maybe we can talk you guys into like upping production to offset the prices? The Saudi Arabia and the UAE leaders declined even a call with Biden. They didn't want it. They don't have anything to do with it. They're like, listen, like, this is your mess. Don't drag us into it. You know, we have our plan, what we've done with our allies with no OPEC. You know, we have a production schedule and what we're doing, and we have to honor those agreements. Unlike the US, who doesn't honor any type of agreement. Like, I don't know who would go in any type of agreement with our State Department or our government, because they violate all those things. They have to change it. But I think that just speaks volumes in regards to how foreign countries look at the United States as a lost vessel. It's a sinking ship, and they're jumping off rather quickly. So what does the U.S. do next? What does the State Department, the Biden administration, do next? Well, you know what? Let's go to Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro, that we spent the last several years trying to basically overthrow his government, right? With Guaido, there was assassination attempts. But we go to Maduro and we're like, hey, listen, like, we're willing to remove your sanctions on your oil, but you have to guarantee us so much percentage of sale of that oil to the United States. Well, guess what? You know, let's remember less than 3 to 5 years ago, who had to come in and broker a deal and really save Venezuela in regards to their oil, in regards to that was Gazprom. Gazprom had to come in and where's Gazprom? Gazprom is Russia based. Gazprom had to directly go in, take a direct ownership stake in Venezuela and their oil energy, and to secure and financially prop up that distribution. Now, as of 2019, Gazprom did sell its stake in the Venezuelan venture, but it's undisclosed at this point who purchased that ownership stake into Venezuelan, the government-controlled oil. But do you think that for one moment that whoever that owner is, do you think that Maduro has the ability to make those decisions for himself as it relates to Venezuelan oil and where it's going to go? Absolutely not. So again, our State Department, United States, is on a massive backfooting right now as it relates to foreign policy, and that was the specific title for this. So I'd love to hear, that's my opinion, that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear direct comments from our listeners. So post your comments directly on this video. For our Gadfly subscribers, this will be posted. This video will be probably scrubbed from free platforms and posted specifically on the Gadfly multi-channel network. So comment directly on this video, this stream. If you like this format and you like the work that I'm attempting to do here, please let me know. And I'm fine whether it's good, bad, or constructive feedback. Please do that for me, just so that I know. Not sure if I'll listen to it or not, but I'll at least read it. I'm just kidding. I don't mean that. I read a lot of the comments, but let's get ready for a great show at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Gadfly Multi-Channel Network. We're coming up with London Paul and also Ken Shortgun Jr. for a roundtable discussion. But stay optimistic during these times. Figure things out for you and your family. Look at things as an individual basis, and let's pray. Let's pray for peace. Let's pray that sound minds can come forward to avoid any type of escalation, because that's not what we want. We don't want innocent lives lost, whether it's in Ukraine, Russia, here in the United States, wherever it may be. Let's find a way to broker a peace deal during this time. So much love to you all. Thank you for listening in. This is CJ. Again, you can follow my work over at the Gadfly MCN. Follow me over on my Twitter handle, which is @ProducerCJ1. And also don't forget the work that I do with V, the guerrilla columnist over on Rogue News. So everyone take care. God bless. And we'll be back real soon. Thank you.